But here's the clincher here. Moreover, reason itself depends upon motives that are not themselves rational. Reason depends on X, whatever X is, and X itself is not rational. This is bizarre. So reason is not self-sufficient. Reason is not a means of understanding the world. Indeed, you can look into what a person thinks is reasonable and find behind that the true motives of which are not reasonable, meaning inherently irrational, not rational. Now that right there is an article of faith, and this is, again, this is the preview. This is not Freud talking. This is the guy talking about Freud and clarifying some things about Freud. But anyways, he says, therefore, since reason depends on motives that are not rational, it limits the strength severely at the very point of origin, rationality. Freud counted on something more than reason to achieve something more than a remission of symptoms. More than reason? What? What? Witchcraft? What? What? What else could you use besides reason? Quote, the experience of psychoanalysis was not a merely rational exercise upon fact, but also a transformation of attitude. So there's the idea that it's therapy. We're not just looking into your mind to figure out why you're hysterical. We're going to get you to change and change your person and fix you that way. Not through rationality, but through experiencing the being analyzed. I mean, is it any wonder that this guy was in the culture of Germany just 20 years before it fell into the hell of Nazism? It's no wonder, it's no coincidence. Now this next sentence is, I don't know what this next sentence is. The psychoanalytic case history crosses the barrier artificially erected between, so getting a case history of a person crosses a barrier. Get this, this is an artificial barrier. There shouldn't be a barrier here. So by psychoanalyzing someone, you cross this barrier that's been put up between a literature of description and a literature of imagination. Now, it seems to me that describing something that's real and making shit up are different, and that there's not an artificial barrier between them. There is an absolute cognitive barrier between them. One is one and the other is the other. Making shit up, even if it's, I mean, I shouldn't use the word shit, making stuff up, making things up, because Ayn Rand's book Atlas Shrugged was made up. Not entirely, it's not a floating platonic unrelated to reality. It did relate to reality, but it was not a true story. It was made up. And when a doctor describes how to transplant a heart in a textbook, he's not making stuff up. And to say that there's an artificial barrier between the two, I mean, you don't even get into Freud, you're just in the pretext, in the introduction, and they're already saying, forget everything rational, get ready for unreason, get ready for irrationality, get ready for stuff to just be made up out of the blue. It's gonna happen, plus it's all okay because it's an artificial barrier. Quote, it matters very little whether Freud's case histories are called science or art. Full stop. Oh, what? Oh man, I think it does matter. If we call it science, then the term science does have some meaning. It's not just a completely meaningless term. It does have some meaning, and it is very different from art. Very, very different from art. And he says it doesn't matter if you call his writings science or art. Freud's interpretive science is the science of interpretation rather than investigation or just clinical observation. It's a science of interpretation, right? Freud's interpretive science was itself an art, aiming at a transformation of the life thus interpreted, as we said before. Go into psychoanalysis not to figure out what the problem is, but to change yourself, or for the psychoanalyst to change you. The decline of any science or art can be measured by a weakening of transformative effect. So a science or art, a branch of science or art, is strong, metaphorically speaking, this is his metaphor, strong if it can bring about transformation. It's weak if it cannot bring transformation. Now, I don't know what the hell transformation would be in science, but transformation, as per Freud, means transforming the individual that's being psychoanalyzed. So, there you go. He says a good, strong art would be able to transform people. And Freud, therefore, is not weak, he's strong, because he has the power to transform. You know, this is, and people say, I hear it again and again from people that Freud's brilliant and you have to read his stuff and stuff. So, fine, I'll read it. Now, get this really strange sentence here. Remember this. There's this old man, 45 or something like that, and this 14-year-old girl, and he hits on her, and she doesn't want it. So she resists, and then she actually tells on him. We'll get to the details of that, but, quote, "With irresistible brilliance, Freud followed the strings of complex motivation back to one of the painful knots in Dora's psyche, K-N-O-T, a knot. Finding that," here's what Freud found in psychoanalyzing the girl. He found that, despite her refusal, Dora wanted to accept Herké's proposition, which she understood and rejected violently even before the proposition was done. The guy hadn't even finished proposing to her what he wanted to happen. He just planted a kiss on her lips and she broke away and ran. And Freud finds that she wanted this. Very odd. And she's a nervous wreck, and she keeps telling her dad, we have to move out of this house. We can't be around these people. I hate these people. I hate him. I hate his wife. I don't want to be around him. He's trying to get with me. And Freud says, "Ah, but you wanted this come on, didn't you?" Dora was in love with the man she thought she detested. That's Freud. That's what Freud finds. Quote, "We never discover a no in the unconscious." Yeah, full stop. Sorry about that. That's a quote from Freud. That's not just in the introduction. That's Freud. He says, we never discover a no in the unconscious. Now back to the guy who's writing the introduction. Sexual distaste, like other forms of rejection, so put all forms of rejection, even sexual distaste, may be dishonest emotion, a defensive tactic of conscience against desire. So, when you say, no, I don't want to sleep with you, quit hitting on me, what you're saying is, I want to, but I'm fighting against my desires. Now, ladies and gentlemen, is that brilliant or is that hogwash? Is that just made up crap? Imagined because, I don't know what Freud's problem was, if he had been reading too much Hegel or what was going on in his brain, but to think that that is a proposition with any meaning, that there's no such thing as a no in the subconscious, in the unconscious. There's no such thing as a no. You accept and want everything. And when we reject something, that's because of the fact that we wanted it. It's almost too bizarre. It's almost, you have to read the sentence over and over to make sure it was really there. But yeah, it's really there. We never discover a no in the unconscious. Now, get this. You think it's so crazy so far. Get this. Because a negative judgment, judging negatively against the guy hitting on you or whatever, judging negatively in some situation, because a negative judgment is simply the intellectual substitute for repression,